Good morning, everyone.
Good morning. Good morning.
What a wonderful washout. I mean, turnout. I hope you enjoyed the retrospective in pictures. The last few photos, I've got a taste of that shot where I'm up like this with the medallion. That's from a pilot proof of concept for a TV series called The Traveler, and I brought a clip from that if people want to have a sneak peek at that, where I played a nefarious time traveler. And then shortly before that, the guy in the green Hawaiian-looking shirt with the gun. That film was shot here in Sacramento. It's called Savior of None, and it's streaming now on Amazon. And we'll have also a theatrical release down in, I want to say Sutter's Mill, for 2 weeks, starting next week. And gosh, how's everyone doing? I love this show in that it's tied in with a charity. I was thinking, all these huge shows. We did a cast reunion last July at London Comic-Con, and when I was at the Gallifrey One, the Doctor Who show last year, the owner of that show, Jason Joyner, came up to me and said, "Jeffrey, how do I get Tom Wilson and Michael J. Fox to come to my show? I want to do a cast reunion." I said, "Well, Tom doesn't really do Back to the Future themed events. He got burned out on it. You know, doesn't like being associated with Biff that much. Maybe got, I don't know, butted heads with a butthead producer or something." But for Michael, I said, with Michael, make it a charity. Make it tied into his charity. And so he did that. And when I got there, Gibson had donated this rare, beautiful electric guitar, and the 11 cast members that we brought in signed the guitar, and it auctioned off for over $20,000. So that was very cool to see Michael. Of course, I don't know how much, 100,000 or so probably was donated to the charity as well. So if you want Michael J. Fox to show up to your show, make it about his charity. I, for years, have been trying to figure out, how can I give back to the Back to the Future cast, being a part of the trilogy and all. And so last year, I produced a Back to the Future themed cruise. Some of the photos you saw towards the end were from We're Going Back, which was the, every 5 years they do this event where Ken Kapowalski and Joe Walter take guests, Back to the Future fans, to all the shooting locations and have special events where all the cast and crew members that they can get to those locations. And the fans just crap their pants. They're so excited. It's really fantastic. And we restaged the Enchantment Under the Sea dance where we shot the film at the Hollywood Methodist Church. And as you saw, Harry Waters Jr. was singing, I was playing guitar, and then a band called the Flux Capacitors backed us up. So I got Harry, and then other cast members, Mark McClure, who played Dave McFly, Don Fullilove, who played Mayor Goldie Wilson on bass, myself on guitar, Mark was on drums, and Harry lead singing. And we did a cruise, a Back to the Future themed cruise, and we did our own Enchantment Under the Sea dance. And it was a real big hit. It was really quite wonderful. And we ended up raising about $8,000 for Michael's charity, and $1,000 for Wendy Jo Sperber, who played Linda McFly, who's unfortunately not with us anymore, for her charity, the We Spark. And I think that's the best way that I think all fan cons should have charities attached. I think that's, Wizard World and Comic Cons would be really great if they, I hope they see the light, support a charity. That's why I like this show so much. Stephanie who runs this show, originally met at the Gallifrey One, where I was promoting the cruise. You guys, anyone been to the Gallifrey One, the Doctor Who show? It's insane. The show sells out. The next year's show sells out the day after that year's show closes. And more than 85% of the attendees come as either a doctor, a companion, or a evil, bad guy. Daleks, exterminate. So, any questions? Any answers? Any songs? As you can see from the first slide, I started acting when I was a kid. The first slide I was there that you saw, I was in 9th grade doing Blithe Spirit. And I had the bug to act since really I came out of the womb. And my parents didn't want me to go into acting at all. No way. Can't do it, can't do it. And finally when I was 18, I was like, I'm going to do it. And started to get the desire to get on big budget sets and get on studio lots. So I joined a company that would pretty much supply crowds for big scenes that they needed a lot of bodies for. So some of my early credits were I Want to Hold Your Hand, Zemeckis' first film, a Ringo fan in that. It was very interesting because shooting in the back lot in Burbank, it was probably 99 to 102 degrees, and it's supposed to be January in New York, 1963 or 4. And all the extras are bound up in scarves and big coats and hats and everything, and between every take they're wandering down the streets, and the extras were dropping like flies from heat prostration. It was just horrible. And Zemeckis wasn't comfortable really directing crowd scenes. He wasn't used to it, so this little-known director named Steven Spielberg came in and directed us. And that was interesting, just to see him up on a ladder going, all right, you did everything, right? And I worked on a film called FM with Martin Mull and Eileen Brennan, where it was rioting outside a television station. That was kind of cool because Martin Mull was a very funny man, very friendly. And one of the odd things I remember of that was that for lunches, we were all given tickets to go to catering. It was like, how did I get that tickets? Well, there was a phantom of the backlot at Universal. A Teamster apparently had been fired or blacklisted, and he had been living on the backlot and beating up cleaning crew members and security guards and stuff, and eating with the film casts and crews. So they're gonna, if you didn't have a ticket, then you were probably the phantom. Universal has a way of. Anyway, then my big break came with Sgt. Pepper's Lonely Hearts Club Band. Yes, that incredible classic. I'm in like 4 different scenes. I played Strawberry Field's brother. I got a couple fat people to play her parents, and then stick the skinny kid in there to be her brother, and that was me. And then the Earth, Wind, and Fire Got to Get You Into My Life scene, which was a blast shooting, and then I got brainwashed by Alice Cooper in that. So if you see me doing this, because I was doing dance moves, they brought me up to a union contract. And at that time, the Screen Actors Guild was $350 to join. Now it's $3,500 or something to join. And at the time, I was like, I could either pay my rent or I could join the union, and I needed to pay my rent. So I didn't join the union then, but a number of years later, after being told, no one's going to take me seriously unless I have some great training, and I came to San Francisco and went to the American Conservatory Theater and studied my craft, and then San Francisco State. And while there, Martin Brest picked me out of a cattle call to screen test for the lead in a film called The Genius. And the film had Warren Oates attached to it, and unfortunately he died, and the film went into turnaround. United Artists and MGM merged, and the executives couldn't decide whether or not to do this film. My screen test kept getting delayed. Finally, the test went on. I tested the same day as Dana Carvey and Eric Stoltz and a handful of other very talented actors. None of us got the role. Matthew Broderick ended up getting it, and they renamed the film War Games. But that got me to Hollywood on a nice ticket, and about 3 months after moving back to Hollywood, I met with George Miller, 3 months after the accident, actually, on John Landis' segment of Twilight Zone. And Spielberg decided they wanted to complete the film. We know each other. He can drink out my water. Spielberg wanted to complete the film after all, because the accident took place close to the last day of shooting on the Landis segment. And so I went in and met with George Miller and told a joke, and we got along great. And was working with John Lithgow on the Twilight Zone movie, on the segment, the remake of Nightmare at 30,000 Feet. And that was the film that, I guess, my first co-star credit, and that's when I joined the unions, which had doubled in its rate by then. Like, wow. But then shortly thereafter worked on films like Johnny Dangerously and Crackers, directed by Louis Malle, scene with Sean Penn in that. Hollywood's very crazy. I come up to San Francisco to shoot that scene, and they kept putting me off. Can you stay in town until this rain lets up? It was raining all the time. So I got to hang out with Donald Sutherland and Jack Warden. It was really quite cool. And finally, after 2 weeks, they said, go back to LA, we'll contact you when we're going to shoot this scene. So, I don't know, 4 months later, I finally get a call, we're going to shoot your scene now. So I go to Universal, and they're making it rain. It's a match, anyway. So slowly but surely started working in television. Max Headroom in Dallas, and Scarecrow and Mrs. King. You saw the pictures there of me with Dick Van Dyke on Diagnosis Murder. The reason Dick Van Dyke and I are both doing our Stan Laurel impressions in that one shot is Dick was very close to Stan Laurel. And when he found out that I played Stan Laurel at Universal Studios from '87 to 2001, we spent the whole day when we weren't shooting just telling stories about Laurel and Hardy. He also talked about his night with Buster Keaton and Eleanor. It was really lovely story. Dick Van Dyke's just a gem. So I hope you all get to work with him. And oh, look who's here! Hey, mascot, come in! It's about time you got here. Hey, River Cat! Meow! I said, do you just meow or do you purr? Yeah? We have to have publicity shots, the big stars there together. Yeah, River Cat! Oh, sorry. You have a Velcro nose. Ladies and gentlemen, River Cat, Dinger! We were going to sing a duet, but he's got laryngitis. So like I said, I work a lot here in Sacramento. If you've had anyone with children that have gone on the Polar Express in the last 9 years, for the California Railroad Museum, I've been playing the hobo that lives on the top of the train. I'm serious. That show sells out in 4 hours. 26,000 tickets sell out the day it goes on sale. It's a great show. Just me and Santa Claus, and we take kids and their parents in their pajamas up to see Santa Claus at the North Pole. It's a magic show. Really very cool. All takes place on a train. Hey, Spidey. What's up? Hey, glad you could make it. Like I said, the film Savior of None we shot here in Sacramento. Also, if you had come down to Old Sac, we haven't done the show the last 2 years, but for the 5 years before that, in Old Sac with Pete right here, we've been doing living history, playing characters from the mid-1800s. We recreated the riot that took place in 1851 down on J and 6th, I think. There was a real riot where the mayor got shot. He died a year later from his wounds, and several civilians were killed. We reenacted that daily, and I played Mark Twain in that, and it was really quite cool. It was called Time Travel Weekends, and living history here. And anyone here take the underground tours there in Old Sac? I trained a lot of those tour guides. Train them to stay in character. It's much more exciting. It really is transporting when someone's in character. Environmental theater. When I was, sophomore in high school in '73, I kind of borrowed my costume from a production of Merchant of Venice I was doing and thumbed out to the Renaissance Fair and just fell in love with it. And so that environmental theater, you guys see Westworld, the series now? You know, it's great. I always dreamt of, because Westworld, the movie with Yul Brynner, had come out about that time, and I was like, this is what psychedelic entertainment should be. Everyone should drop acid and go into an environment and live it. You know, it's like, hey, the Renaissance Fair, that's where it was happening. Anyway, so it really has come into its own. The environmental theater, the cosplay at Comic-Cons, you know, people acting things out, murder mysteries, it's really very cool. So I'd love to see that over the years. Don't be shy, come in. It's all right, I'm shy too. I'm a shyster. Okay. Yay! This, everybody, Obi-Wan, welcome.
My name is Anakin.
Oh, Anakin, I'm sorry. That's, I beg your pardon. I mistook you for one of your ancestors. Did I get that right? One of his descendants. I'm in the same room at least. So welcome. My name is Jeffrey Weissman. Most people don't recognize my face, but I played George McFly in Back to the Future 2 and 3, and then did a Western with Clint Eastwood called Hail Rider. Anyone see that? If you haven't seen it, it's a gorgeous film. Clint had the main set of the new town built on the top of a mountain outside of Sun Valley, Ketchum, Idaho. And wherever the cinematographer, Bruce Surtees, put his camera, he had the Sawtooth Mountains, or the White Cloud Mountains, or the Salmon River Mountains as his backdrop. So the film is absolutely gorgeous to look at. And then Clint sort of reprises sort of his ghost character from High Plains Drifter, sort of the cross between High Plains Drifter and Shane, if you know those westerns. So it was really fun to work on that. Boy, being on location for over a month with Clint Eastwood really is quite interesting, really fun. He, at one point, I guess, didn't like the caterer, so fired the caterer while on location. New caterer comes in from Hollywood, but next day, in the middle of a blizzard, we're having steak and lobster. In the middle of a blizzard outside, I was like, whoa, this is weird, having steak and lobster with Clint in the middle of a nice weather, Clint. And he goes, oh, I didn't expect it to be snowing in October. No, well. Lots of very fun stories. For those of you who saw the film, Michael Moriarty, the great Michael Moriarty's character, Hull Barrett, in one of the first scenes you see him in, gets into a fight with the cowboys in town, right? And during the rehearsal, I'm not sure if it was Charlie Hallahan, one of the other cowboy actors, was messing around. They didn't follow the choreography. For those of you who want to act, don't ever do a stunt or a fight or anything without choreographing it. Don't ever jump because Michael got hurt. He broke 3 fingers on his hand, and he quit the film. It took Clint 3 days to get Michael back on the film. He had been commissioned to write a symphony, and he was so pissed. It was terrible. So Clint ended up getting him a mellotron, one of those things you blow in that's a keyboard, so he could compose with his one good hand while in his dressing room. So he got him back on the set. Then Carrie Snodgrass almost quit the film because she and Clint and Michael butted heads. My character wouldn't let him go to town, or I'd hold his horse. Oh, Carrie, don't touch the horse. I don't touch the horse. I had to keep plying Carrie with drinks to calm her down, and she almost quit the film. It was just crazy being on location. And then Chris Penn, Sean Penn's brother, fell off the wagon. He bought a gun, went out shooting, got arrested. Clint had to bail him out of jail. All sorts of things on location happen. It's just actors on per diem. Once again, it was just a gorgeous set to be on, but it was cold. Because he had built that town on the top of a mountain, we were exposed to the elements. So with the wind chill factor, it was usually about 10 below zero. And when it was time for the actors to go to work, Mr. Weissman, we need you on set. Well, it was like, no. They'd have these gas heaters that we'd huddle around. It's like, can you do the scene without me? Freezing. A diddly dee, and actors like Ruby. So it was a real joy working. Like I said, Clint was a real gentleman and top-notch crew. The thing about Clint Eastwood, he learned from Don Siegel, the director of several of the Dirty Harry movies, who learned from John Ford, who directed John Wayne in Westerns, how to shoot rehearsals. You save footage, maybe in the rehearsal you get the performance you want, you can move on, you'll be ahead of schedule. So Clint was always ahead of schedule and below budget. The one scene where I finally get to Daddy's dead body and I'm crying over it, it was a rehearsal. And it took us 3 days to shoot the one scene of Daddy being shot. I don't know if you've seen the film, Daddy's first gun, he's drunk and the bad guys make him dance, and then when he goes for his gun, he gets shot from head to toe. And we had to do a costume change after each shot, and the first day of shooting, thank you sir, first day of shooting, we had a blizzard. Second day of shooting, we were in sunshine, and third day, or no, how'd it go? Sunshine, then blizzard, and then everything had melted. So then by the third day, when I got to Daddy's body, it was all oil-based snow, which was very slippery. So when I got to his body, the actor playing my brother was in my spot, so I switched gear to get to his spot, and I slipped on the oil-based snow, almost kicked poor Doug McGrath playing my dead dad, in the head. Anyway, this was a rehearsal. We were going to do it right in a take. As soon as it was over, Clint said, "Okay, cut, let's move on." I was like, "No!" And ran up to Clint and said, "No, you can't." Chuck didn't hit his mark, and I almost kicked Doug in the head. He goes, "No, look good, we'll just cut from your face. Come in! Come in, it's okay." So, I wasn't going to argue with that. Clint's going to cut from my face. Okay, I'll take it. So luckily, you know, I knew I wasn't up to the full potential of my crying, even though it was 10 below. I'd have tears that may have frozen in my eyes. But you don't argue with Clint too much. So in the Back to the Future saga, very odd the way that all came about. I had been working in between film and TV jobs at Universal Studios. Anyone here go to Universal between 87 and 2001? A couple, yeah. So if you had your picture with Laurel and Hardy or Charlie Chaplin or Groucho Marx, you might have seen the pictures on the slideshow. And if you had your picture with any of those characters, it might have been with me, because I had played those characters up there. And the agent who helped me get that job called me up one day and said, "Do you know who Crispin Glover is?" I said, "Of course, he's a great actor. I did a show with him, a film with him with Daniel Hurley at the American Film Institute the year before he got George McFly in the first film." And I thought he was a very compelling actor, really fascinating. "What's up? What do you need?" "Well, they're looking for a photo double stand-in for him for a new film, and I needed work." I said, "Get me in there. I'm not the same height or weight or anything, but I'll do what I can." And I had a great meeting with the assistant directors, who then sent me to casting, and then I started being fitted for prosthetic makeup. Interesting, photo double, okay. And then a body cast for special effect. George gets flipped upside down and finally turns for pizza up for dinner, which wasn't used in the final cut. So it was my makeup artist who said, "Crispin's out. You're going to be playing George." I was like, "What?" And I couldn't fathom, how could they have a different George McFly? That's not going to work. But then if you think about it, George is actually more of a support player. The first film really was George's story. The second film was Marty's story, and the third film is Doc's story. So it does make sense that George is a lesser player, and apparently Crispin was a pain in the ass on the first film. He butted heads with the director and the producers. He and Leah had created a painting together in rehearsal, and he insisted that it be put in the McFly home on the walls, and Zemeckis was like, I got an art director who's covered, and I can't do that. And when someone cut his hair without his approval while he was in the makeup chair, he blew his top, he'd disappear for days on end. And anyway, he wanted script approval on part 2, apparently. And the same money as Michael J. Fox, and then they said, "No, we'll give you $100,000. And he said, "No, I'll take $1 million." And they said, "No." And anyway, I learned all this, unfortunately, as time progressed and I was working on the film. But as you saw, the footage and the slides, they had me looking pretty close to Crispin. So, of course, when the films came out, he sued, and it settled out of court. He ended up getting his $750 million. And I get to do cons and talk to you about this adventure. It's been really incredible, though, getting to become, I'm friendly with Christopher Lloyd and Leah Thompson and Michael J. Fox. It's really, I have to pinch myself. It's really a great company to be in. And also to be part of one of the best trilogies of all time. It's up there in the top 5, I think. And welcome!
Thank you.
And so it was fun. A lot of people don't realize, when we had to do the scenes from part 3 from different angles, the Enchantment Under the Sea dance and knocking Biff out in the parking lot, that's all me. Most people don't realize it's not Crispin. And then, of course, hanging upside down George, that torture was meant for Crispin. I got to endure it. Oh boy. But it was kind of cool, even though it was a pain in the back, it was very unique to see the art direction of those sets is really remarkable. The kitchen, the McFly kitchen of 2015 and the living room, just every little tiny detail was art directed within an inch of its life, something futuristic. All my clothes were unusual fabrics and do you remember when the pizza was hydrated in 4 seconds and came out? Well, so Pizza Hut had behind the set 4 tables with 6 ladies constantly making fresh pizzas for each take. So the soundstage smelled like pepperoni pizza all day. We were so not into pizza, let me tell you. It was... So they had a track going from outside the front door all the way through the living room and into the kitchen. It took us 2 weeks to shoot. You see me, 30 seconds at the most? Anyway, 2 weeks to shoot all that, getting in there. And I was a big fan of Robert Zemeckis, especially because I loved Who Framed Roger Rabbit. And I said to Boxy, "You're going to do that sequel to Who Framed Roger Rabbit?" He goes, I don't know. Why? Because working with live action and animation is so difficult, and he goes, "No, I got more complicated stuff on this shoot than I ever did on that." So what is it, Bob? He says, "Animators." There were long days. I remember in 1 week I had a 19-hour day, a 21-hour, a 22, a 26-hour long day. If I needed to be on the set by 8:30 or 9 o'clock in the morning, I was in the makeup chair by 4 in the morning. 4 hours to get the makeup on, another hour at the end of the day just to get the makeup off. And then we would shoot all night. We'd shoot what we could during the day, but Michael J. Fox was doing the last season of Family Ties during the day, and then shooting with us all night. And I was like, "Michael, where do you sleep? When do you sleep?" And he goes, "In the limo in between the studios." God. So I have a theory, and that's why his Parkinson's came on so while he was young, because he was a workaholic. He was run ragged. Poor guy. It's very difficult. In 2008, we did our first cast reunion, and it was the first time I'd seen Michael up close with the Parkinson's affecting him, and it was just heartbreaking because it drives his body. He can't control this move. He's got to walk it off because of the pain and stuff. It was truly heartbreaking. And Claudia Wells and Mark McClure, Francis Lee McCain, Chris Lloyd and Leah Thompson and I were all there, and I don't think many of us had seen Michael that close up with all the effects of the Parkinson's, and it just was heartbreaking to us all. But he is amazing. He's still doing Comic-Cons, he's still working television and film, and he's, still a rascal. He's just an amazing personality, huge heart, and doesn't put up with crap. He's just really wonderful. I hope you all get to meet him sometime. He's a great guy. So we've done, like I said, these reunions. I during the shoot said to my makeup artist, Michael Mills, who was the foreman on Beetlejuice, I said, I'm such a big Christopher Lloyd fan. I'd love to meet him. I don't have any scenes with him. Can you arrange it? He says, "Come tonight. We're doing Hill Valley 2015 Exteriors." He's in that. When the time machine comes into the McFly neighborhood. I said, "Great." So I show up at 3 in the morning, get in the makeup trailer, and wait an hour. Finally, Chris comes in. Mike says, "Chris, this is Jeffrey Weissman playing George McFly. Jeffrey, this is Christopher Lloyd." "Hello, I'm a huge fan." He goes, "Oh, thanks." So the next 10, 15 minutes, we're just sort of... He's a very quiet guy, and I was totally intimidated. I was like, all right, nice to meet you, bye. So that was back in '89, right? So about 2009 or so, Chris and I were special guests at a trilogy screening down in Beverly Hills, and we were holed up in the projection booth for an hour together. So finally got to break the ice with Chris. You know, if he doesn't know you, he doesn't talk too much. But I learned a great deal finally. Yeah, it's not a lot of talking, but he likes exotic meat-eating plants. So whenever I know I'm going to run into Chris, I always get a carnivorous plant. Usually a very rare one. Make sure I've got it for Chris. He's like, oh! He goes out of his mind. And, I've done 2 films with Chris now, 2 independent films. One called The Chateau Miro, which has been on the Family Channel a lot, where we play rival attorneys. He's the bad guy. I'm a good guy attorney. I know that's a misnomer, but I shouldn't say that in the courtroom, should I? And then we did a film that should be out now called The Boat Builder, where I just do a little bit part, but it was great to see Chris again, brought him another meat-eating plant. And then when I see Chris the next time, you know, how are the plants doing? He goes, oh, they died. I was like, why are they dying? He goes, I'm never home to water them. He's a funny man. I could go on with these silly stories all day. Are there any questions? Anything you want to know? I have a tattoo, right? No.
Did you ever ride the hoverboard?
Did I ever ride the hoverboard?
Yes.
Dear friends of mine, did you see the slideshow?
I was outside.
Oh, there's a great shot of me in a monster truck DeLorean.
I did see that.
Yeah, it's very cool. So at that show, I was pretty much in obscurity until the DeLorean owners sort of adopted me. I would MC, be a guest at their shows, and I would meet these amazing obsessive compulsive DeLorean owners who have done everything from making their DeLoreans electric to Bentmobiles to you name it. They've done it to a DeLorean. Not in it, anyway. And two dear friends now, Oliver and Terry Holler. He was diagnosed with terminal cancer, and he was introduced to his future bride by their minister at church because they both love Back to the Future, and he said, well, if I'm going to die, I'm going to do it with some style. I'd like to buy a DeLorean. They found a DeLorean for sale, and then he is an electronics engineer genius, and he made a replica of the Part 2 type machine. And they've taken it to all 50 states now, raising money for the Parkinson's Foundation, and his terminal cancer has... You've seen that? Yeah.
I do believe we met him last year.
Yeah, they've been doing all the Comic-Cons that they can, raising money for Parkinson's, and his cancer went away. So what they have attached to their time machine DeLorean is a hoverboard that you can ride alongside it. Did you get that photo?
We met him at Las Vegas Wish World last year. So
Right. I was there.
Were you?
Yeah, they had the Superman reunion there. Remember? With Jack O'Halloran and Valerie Perrine was in with her. She's got Parkinson's. And the crazy... I was just with Margot Kidder in Oregon 2 weeks ago. Boy, is she a Bernie activist. Oh my goodness. The stuff she's dug up on Hillary would burn your ears. Amazing. She is Lois Lane. I swear she is. The more typecast, you couldn't get a better Lois Lane. She really just digging, constantly writing it. And funny stories, and she dated everyone. She's got stories about everyone. I don't want to say much more about that. Anyway, also at the We're Going Back event, we took over the town of Fillmore, California, and they had these cranes out there with wires with hoverboards on them. And so I got my pictures on the hoverboard, and then we go and erase the wires. So yes, I have ridden a hoverboard. And we should bring that here to this Comic-Con, to this Intergalactic Expo. That is such a great thing, and it's not a hard thing to do. Is, you know, just get someone to suspend the wires with a metal hoverboard, the people on it, you know, someone spotting for them, step back, take a snap, and then erase the wires, and you're flying. It's so cool to have one of those pictures. Photoshop is a wonderful thing. Welcome! Those are great t-shirts. The Intergalactic Expo t-shirt, very nice. I would like to get one, oh boy.
You want one?
Yes, please.
All right, we'll get them one.
I'll give you a cruise t-shirt. I produced a Back to the Future themed cruise to raise money for Parkinson's, and I've got a lot of extra t-shirts that I'll sell for cheap. Ain't no price. So I brought some.
Or
Maybe. If you had a face like mine, I'd punch you right in the nose, and he's just the fella to do it. Excuse me. So, try to think of some other questions. Yes?
Yes, and it's been a while since I watched Back to the Future 3. Now, and that's you at the end when he
Yes.
gets back to his regular time stream, but were you in any cast part?
No, it was interesting because Bob Gale, the writer and co-producer, came to me while I was suffering, hanging upside down in part 2, and said, "Hey, Jeffrey, for all this, we'll give you a part in part 3 without the makeup and everything." I was like, "Great!" I'm still waiting for that. Yeah, it didn't happen. Although I came to him with the script, and I said, "You know what I really like?" Because 2 and 3 were originally one script called Paradox, and then they thought to themselves, "Wait a minute. If we make this 2 films, let's flesh it out, make 2 films, we'll double our money." Hollywood. So I liked the Western Union delivery guy. I said, "Oh, I'd like to play that part." I came to Bob with the script. "Can I play this?" And he said, "No, I think that's already cast." Joe Flaherty from CTV got that role. I'm like, "Darn." Okay. And then I remember my old agent called me when part 3 came out, and she said, "I saw your name in the credits. Were you one of the cowboys?" I said, "I was hoping to be." Actually, if you read the original draft of Paradox, Seamus McFly was to be played by Crispin. So it made sense, yeah, because, you know, put me in that role, I don't look like anyone that anyone knows. Who's that guy playing Seamus? So as if Michael didn't have enough, since Crispin didn't come back, as if Michael didn't have enough work to do, they put him in that role. You guys know that Michael almost killed himself on part 3? It was an accident, of course. When they lynched him, in the news, it was not working. It wasn't working right. And Michael said, "Well, let me do one last where I'm just holding on to it like this." And they went, "All right, action." And he was hanging there, and he had cut off his blood flow. And he literally passed out while he was hanging there. They cut him down. He went down in the embryonic position and all. It was not fetal position. Sorry, embryonic. Yeah, poor Michael. He went through a lot on that film. Work. But ultimately, what a great film. My favorite is the first film. And then part 3, and then part 2. Most people are like, "Wait, you're in part 2, that should be your favorite." Well, I like part 2, it's loud. There are a lot of things that I did that got cut. Example, fruit please. And the fruit comes down. Lorraine says to Marlene, "Give your granddad a piece of fruit." And she gives me a banana. And I tried to eat the banana upside down, the peel keeps slapping me in the face. It was very funny, and Zemeckis liked it, but didn't keep it in. Also at the front door, when, "Ooh, how did you get like that? How's Granddad's little pumpkin?" Well, in rehearsals, I didn't get any really rehearsals before we got on set, like a lot of them did, but because I was hanging upside down, my head was butt level with Michael J. Fox's Marlene. And they put him in those orange hot pants and then stuffed them to give him a butt. And I thought it looked like a pumpkin. So that's how I came up with the line, "How's Granddad's little pumpkin?" Isn't life worth living now? Trivia that no one else knows.
What did you learn on Back to the Future? What kind of acting skills did you learn? What kind of movies you learn?
I teach film acting, and also at university I teach acting and commedia dell'arte and improvisation. And what I learned was that no matter how long the day is, you got to keep yourself involved. Like I said, there's 26-hour-long days, and I also loved being this close to Michael J. Fox and watching his technique. As I mentioned, I worked with John Lithgow, and he's a big man who came from mostly stage and Broadway, and he, even though he's big and his acting is huge, on Twilight Zone movie, he's still very big, and George Miller never asked him to bring it down. He never had to bring it down because it was always connected to truth. It was always authentic. Then watching Michael Keaton up close, he's got this electric thing, it's magnetic, and he's big, but he's never not believable. The same thing with Clint Eastwood. He's small. We did a scene that took all night, mostly of Clint's monologue around the campfire, and I was like, my God, he's not doing anything at all. There's nothing going on. And yet when it's 70 feet wide on the big screen, it's full and genuine, connected to his authenticity. Whereas Michael, who's weaned on, comedy film and comedy TV, he's got this formula working for him, and he knows that if the formula isn't connected to his truth, it's not going to read. In fact, Michael, I always say to my actors, never cut yourself, never call cut, always stay in the moment until the director calls cut, because you could mine some gold. There could be some great moments that you could still capture after the dialogue is ended. A couple times I saw Michael actually call cut himself, because he didn't believe it. He'd go, cut, no, can we do it again? I didn't believe it.
Wow.
Yeah, so when you see that, and then, every rule can be broken. And that is definitely one of those times. If it's not genuine, the camera can't lie. I teach this to all my students. The camera cannot lie. So if you are lying in front of the camera, it's going to come across as a lie. It's got to be genuine. And for acting to really have full emotions, directors can't direct for results, but rather stimulate. Actors need to get themselves stimulated, fantasize, whatever technique they use to create the environment to have the results, rather than I need to cry here, or a director saying I need you to cry here. That ain't going to happen unless you have the stimuli to create that ends. And I'll give an acting lesson after this for those who want to stick around. We have about 5 minutes left. I have a little clip of this time travel sci-fi pilot I'd like to show you. Would you like to see it?
Yes.
So this is one of the things where you've got to trust your director. On this, I was asked to. I had it queued up. Yes, here we go. So the director had me hit 9 different places, and I had no idea how it was going to come out. Here we go.
Did you think you were the only one? Trist. Who are you?
You really don't remember, do you?
This allows me to move forward. You're limited to the past. But I can see all of time.
Without the past, we'd have no future.
Past, present, future is all an illusion. Time happens simultaneously. You're stuck in the past.
That's a pity. You were always so wistful.
Tristan, I found the flash drives. I know it.
Tristan, the blowback, you have to remember.
Don't even attempt to try to save her again. I'll undo anything you try to change. Trust me, I'm doing you a favor. She'll only cause your demise.
He's a liar and a lunatic. Remember, don't forget me, Tristan. Don't forget me.
Looks pretty interesting, eh? So it's one of those cases where you've got to trust the director, because that was one continuous shot where I appeared in all those different places. So I had to hit the 9 different marks. Hit this, hit this, hit this. You know, beat him up, push that, grab her, do this. It was one continuous shot that we did, you know, maybe 4 or 5 takes on. And I had no idea what it was going to look like until this. And I was like, hey, that worked. It's kind of cool. So a lot of directors these days are, you know, like I said, with Zemeckis saying on Back to the Future 2, very, very obsessed with technical problems. A really great director, like I learned with watching Clint and Bob Z, is that they hire very competent talent to act. They hire very competent talent to be in their crew, so they can just go solve problems while they, you know, sit back and watch everyone do their job. So for those future directors, that's really great advice. Just make sure that you've got people who are centered, relaxed, focused on their job at hand. Hi. Hi. Got a few minutes left? We have a few minutes left if anyone... That's a nice balloon. If you didn't get a balloon, come to my table later, I'll make you one. I can make one. Not that good, but...
Make your name.
Can I make a... I can make a flux capacitor balloon. It doesn't get you very far time travel-wise, but, you know. And, yes, sir?
Just out of curiosity, you don't have to own your own DeLorean.
You know, I have to admit, I'm claustrophobic, and they're too small for me. So, it was actually 2 years ago, a DeLorean owner who I told this to said, "No, come on. Have you ever driven one?" I was like, "No." He said, "Come drive mine." And I went out, I said, "Can I keep the door open?" He said, "Sure, if you need to." And finally, by having my attention on driving, I was able to have the door closed, and I was getting it up to 85 miles an hour. They're not designed to go up to 88. They only go up to 85. Shh, don't tell them. The last surviving #1 first crew car from Part 1 has finally been refurbished. Universal left it out in the weather, and it got ruined, and people were chipping pieces off of it like a religious relic, you know. And it was really being destroyed. And finally, they restored it. Bob Gale headed up that crew, and it's now at the Peterson Auto Museum in Los Angeles. Finally found a good home. Will be taken care of. The time machine for Part 3 is up in Massachusetts. Bill Shea and his son bought it for $800,000 in Monterey a couple years ago. And they have a Back to the Future museum. There's a Back to the Future museum in Torino, Italy, where my last day of old George makeup is actually in the museum. It's like, wow, okay. So it's just an amazing world phenomenon. The Back to the Future films have been very good to me. And you've been very good to me. Any other questions? Yes, sir.
Out of all the movies, other than your own parts, what's your favorite scene as you're watching?
I love it when Leah and Michael are in the car. You know, when you're smoking, or also in her bedroom. You know, your mom, and she's putting. You know, Leah loves being sexy. Leah just adores flirting, and she pours it on so innocently. And Michael plays the comedy so brilliantly. You know, Eric Stoltz. It makes sense that he got replaced because he was a very serious method actor. In fact, when he was shooting, he insisted that everyone call him Marty. and he also had a real rough scene with Tom Wilson as Biff that Tom was going to pay him back, but he got fired, so payback. But the stuff the chemistry, the comedy chemistry, I love with Leah and Michael, and I love the comedy chemistry with Chris Lloyd, of course, and then also that stands the test of time and discernment is that innocent relationship between an older man and a young man that Doc Brown and Marty have that otherwise would be perhaps construed derogatorily, is that a word? And it's not, you know, it's like Laurel and Hardy used to be able to sleep in the same bed and no one would think the same, you know, oh, they're gay, you know, and most people that, oh, here's an old guy and a young guy, why are they best friends and all this, but their relationship is so innocent and friendly and loving, it's just magnificent. And that's, I think, one of the reasons that the films stand the test of time. Because also, everyone wants to go back and meet their parents before they were together too. You know? Good stuff. Thank you everyone for your kind attention. It's been really wonderful. Come visit me later. Also, if you want to do a photo with me, I ask that you give a donation because that's going to go to Make-A-Wish Foundation.
Thanks,